For a long time, I had no idea that something serious was quietly brewing inside me. My liver, one of the most vital organs in my body, was slowly deteriorating, and I kept living my life as if nothing was wrong. The truth is, the warning signs had been there all along, scattered throughout the months, maybe even years. Subtle discomforts that I chalked up to aging, a lingering fatigue I couldn't shake off, a bloated stomach after meals, digestion that felt more like a burden than a process. And I'd always find a way to justify it. It's probably just stress. Must have been the bread I had late last night. I didn't sleep well, that's all. And with those excuses, I kept moving forward, brushing aside what my body was trying to tell me. But the body doesn't stay silent forever. One morning, I woke up feeling like the world was spinning. Nausea clung to my stomach like a bad memory, and a dull, strange pain settled just beneath my right rib cage. That was the first time I truly listened. I went to the doctor thinking maybe I had a stomach bug or something minor. What I heard instead knocked the breath out of me. I was diagnosed with advanced fatty liver, and the silence that followed in that consultation room, it was heavy, like a truth I'd been running from had finally caught up to me. What stunned me the most was how unprepared I was. I had never been a heavy drinker. I didn't take strong medications. I thought I lived a relatively clean life. But here I was, facing the reality that my liver was inflamed, my health was on the edge of a cliff, and if I didn't make some drastic changes, things could spiral fast. That conversation changed everything. So if any of this feels familiar, if you felt tired for no reason, bloated, foggy, or just not quite like yourself, don't ignore it. What I'm about to share might be the turning point you didn't know you needed. And if you're serious about taking control of your health, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Because in this channel, we talk about real solutions, natural, practical, and proven to work, especially for those of us who want to feel alive again without relying on pills or expensive treatments. Let's get into it. In this video, I want to share the full story, how I went from dragging myself through each day, swollen, tired, mentally foggy, to feeling alive again, energized and renewed. And the craziest part? What helped me recover wasn't some miracle pill or expensive procedure. It was something as humble as a single plant leaf. Yes, you heard that right. A natural leaf that, when used consistently for just 7 days, helped flip the switch in my health. No, it wasn't magic. It was commitment. It was educating myself. And above all, it was the decision to stop ignoring the signs and start fighting for my own well-being. If you, or someone close to you, has been diagnosed with fatty liver, feels constantly tired for no clear reason, or struggles with digestion that just doesn't feel right, I urge you to keep watching. Because what I discovered might just change the way you see your own body, and possibly save your health before it's too late. You know, sometimes the answers we search so far and wide for are actually right under our noses, but we're too distracted, too overwhelmed, or too used to discomfort to see them clearly. Before we dive deeper, I'd love for you to let me know in the comments, how old are you and where are you watching from? It means a lot to know who I'm speaking to, because this isn't just a story, it's a wake-up call, and maybe it's exactly what you needed to hear today. Looking back, the first symptoms weren't dramatic. They didn't come crashing into my life like a siren. They whispered, a nagging fatigue, day in and day out, like my body had gained invisible weight. I'd wake up in the morning feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My face in the mirror looked puffier than usual, and my skin had a pale, tired tone I couldn't explain. Then came the sluggish digestion. Every meal felt like it lingered for hours, stuck. I'd feel full even if I hadn't eaten much. By late afternoon, my abdomen would swell. Some nights I'd toss and turn, uncomfortable, restless, like my internal systems were just overloaded. And, just like many others my age, I brushed it all off. I was in my 70s. Isn't that how aging works? Soon, I started cutting out foods, not because I was on a diet, but because they made me feel awful. Meat in the evening? Gone. Fried foods? Cut out. Bread? Slowly eliminated. Yet despite all that effort, nothing truly improved. I still felt like I was dragging myself through life. It got to a point where just walking a single block felt like climbing a hill with weights on my legs. That's when I finally gave in and made the doctor's appointment. They ran blood work, did an abdominal ultrasound, checked everything they could. A few days later, I sat in the office again, watching the doctor scan through my results. His face wasn't alarmed, but it was serious. "You've got fatty liver," he said, "and it's more advanced than we'd like." He told me that my body had been trying to warn me for a long time. I just hadn't listened. That hit hard. I never saw myself as someone who was sick. I didn't live on fast food. I ate homemade meals. Sure, I loved bread and sweets. Those were my weakness. But could that really be enough to damage such an important organ? Turns out, yes. It doesn't take extreme habits to wear out your liver. You don't need sharp pain or high fever for something to be deeply wrong. One of the most shocking realizations for me was how quietly an organ can fail. You can be smiling, living your routine, and meanwhile your liver is crying out for help behind the scenes. After that diagnosis, I began to retrace my steps. All those little signs I ignored, all the bad habits I'd normalized, they weren't harmless. That relentless fatigue wasn't from lack of sleep. It was like I had half a tank of energy, never full, always sluggish. Even a light walk left me winded. Digesting a meal felt like running a marathon. My clothes began to feel tighter around my stomach, even though my weight hadn't changed. And then there were the choices I made thinking they were safe. My usual breakfast? White bread with jam, a bit of cheese, and coffee. Simple, right? But every bite was feeding the very problem I didn't know I had. Hidden sugars, refined carbs, weekend deli meats that seemed innocent but were filled with fat. And every night, I'd end the day with soup and bread, comfort food that was quietly hurting me. I also underestimated how dangerous being inactive could be. After I retired, I stopped moving much. I'd spend hours sitting, reading, watching TV. I thought eating light was enough. It wasn't. My body needed movement, circulation, oxygen, and I had denied it that for years. I made other mistakes too, taking over-the-counter pills whenever I felt bloated or had a headache, using antacids after heavy meals, popping supplements without getting tested first. I even tried intermittent fasting on my own, thinking it would cleanse me. Instead, it left me weak, irritable, and binging junk food when I broke the fast. I chased miracle fixes, teas that claimed to cleanse the liver in 3 days, pretty capsules sold online with promises of detox, expensive treatments wrapped in fancy packaging. But nothing really worked, because I hadn't addressed the real problem, my habits. Every week I tried something new, but deep down I was repeating the same mistakes over and over. I used to dream of a shortcut, some miracle fix, maybe a magic plant, a capsule, or some exotic juice I could sip and, like flipping a switch, everything would go back to normal. I didn't want to confront the reality that my own choices were hurting me. I wanted relief without responsibility. I wanted healing without change, and I know I'm not alone in that. So many of us look for easy answers, not because we're lazy, but because the truth is heavy. We're scared to face what we've been doing wrong for so long. But healing doesn't start with a pill. It begins when we stop feeding the very habits that are making us sick. That was my biggest mistake, believing I could get better while holding on to the same lifestyle that got me sick in the first place. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Nothing around you will truly change unless you do first. The day of my diagnosis will be burned into my memory forever. I remember walking into the clinic, clutching a folder with my test results. None of it made sense to me. I figured the doctor would tell me to eat a bit healthier, cut down on sugar, maybe avoid red meat. Nothing major. I sat down, expecting a gentle conversation. Instead, he looked me straight in the eyes, glanced at the paperwork, took a slow breath, and said, "You have fatty liver disease, and it's not in the early stages." I froze. My thoughts spiraled into silence. He continued, and with every word, the ground beneath me shifted. "This isn't something you can afford to ignore," he said. "Your liver is inflamed. If you don't take action now, it could progress into fibrosis. From there, it could become cirrhosis. And that's not all. It could begin to damage your pancreas, your heart, even your immune system." The word that echoed in my mind, loud and terrifying, was cirrhosis. I'd always associated that with alcoholism, with people who drank their lives away. That wasn't me. I barely touched alcohol, maybe 1 glass of wine a month. And now here I was, facing the very thing I thought only happened to others. Then he said something that truly shook me. "You're also at risk of developing type 2 diabetes." That's when I realized this wasn't just a liver issue. It was a full-body crisis. Fatty liver disrupts how your body processes sugar, how it responds to insulin. Left unchecked, it can throw your entire metabolic system into chaos. I sat there in silence. I wasn't just overwhelmed, I was humiliated. Not by the doctor, but by the realization that I'd let this happen. The signs had been there. I had ignored them. I had ignored my body. Then came the sentence that hit like a hammer. "You don't have much room for error." He wasn't trying to scare me. He was telling the truth. My liver had been fighting a silent war for years, and now it was waving the white flag. The next step, if I didn't act, would be permanent damage. Was I afraid? Absolutely. But more than fear, I felt something deeper. Urgency. The kind that grabs your chest and says, "Move now, or you might not get another chance." I couldn't bear the thought of becoming another statistic, one of the millions living with silent liver inflammation without even knowing it. I left that appointment with one clear decision in my heart. I wasn't going down without a fight. I wasn't going to give up without at least trying to heal. And what I discovered next changed the entire course of my life, because the answer didn't come in some expensive hospital treatment or a fancy supplement. It came from something much more humble, yet far more powerful than I could have imagined. After the diagnosis, I was fired up. I told myself I would do everything necessary. And at first, I did. I completely overhauled my diet. Out went fried foods, sugar, processed meats, and white bread. I began reading food labels like a detective. I measured portions, drank more water, and forced myself to walk every day, even if it was just for 15 minutes. I even tried natural supplements that claimed to detoxify the liver: green capsules, herbal powders with strange names, expensive liver cleanses. I read every book I could get my hands on, watched countless videos, followed every tip that promised healing. But then something started to crack. It wasn't the diet, it was me. My body just wouldn't cooperate. I'd wake up as tired as I was the night before. I had no stamina. Walking a flight of stairs left me winded. Every task felt like pushing a boulder uphill. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit. When you're doing everything right and still feel miserable, your motivation starts to fall apart. One afternoon, after weeks of following every rule, I broke. I was hungry, frustrated, exhausted. I opened the pantry and there it was, soft, white bread, my old comfort food. I stared at it for a moment. Then I ate it. And after that, a slice of cheese. Then a piece of cake I'd saved for guests. It wasn't a binge, but it felt like failure. That night I didn't sleep, not because of my stomach, but because of my guilt. I lay there asking myself, what's the point? What if the damage is already done? What if nothing can be reversed? For days I stayed in that dark place, questioning everything, wondering if I should just stop trying. And that's when something unexpected happened. A man I barely knew mentioned a leaf, a single leaf that, according to him, could reduce liver inflammation, improve digestion, and gently help the body reset itself. I nodded politely. Honestly, I didn't take him seriously. I'd heard so many natural cures that led nowhere. But there was something about the way he spoke. He was 80 years old, but his voice was calm and strong. He didn't sound like someone repeating internet advice. He spoke with conviction, from experience. His skin, his energy, his mental clarity, everything about him radiated vitality. A few days later, that conversation came back to me. I couldn't shake it, so I gave in. I asked him how he used it, how long, how often, and I made my first infusion, not with high expectations, but with a quiet hope I thought I'd lost. What I didn't know was that this simple leaf was about to shift the entire trajectory of my health. Within just 7 days, my body began to show signs I hadn't seen in years. Real change, real relief, and none of it came from a drugstore or a fancy clinic. And you know what? The first time I ever heard about this leaf, it wasn't on the internet, not in a health book, not from a wellness channel. It came from a conversation, from a human being who'd walked through the same shadows I had and found a way out. Sometimes life-changing moments begin with the simplest conversations. I wasn't in a clinic or reading some scientific paper. I was sitting in front of my house just soaking in a bit of sun when I heard someone call out to me. It was Mrs. Elena, my neighbor. She's one of those rare souls who seems untouched by time. Over 80, but you'd never guess it by the way she moves. Upright posture, steady steps, sharp eyes, and this calm, graceful energy that most people lose long before old age. She asked how I was doing, and for once I didn't hide behind pleasantries. I told her the truth. I told her I'd been diagnosed with fatty liver, that I was exhausted all the time, that I'd tried a dozen things but nothing seemed to help. I told her I was stuck, confused, discouraged, tired of trying without seeing results. She paused for a moment. Then she looked at me with the kind of gaze only someone who has truly lived can give. It wasn't judgmental. It was knowing, quiet. She didn't offer pity. Instead, she leaned slightly closer and said, "Have you tried dandelion leaf?" It caught me off guard. Dandelion. That little plant I used to blow on as a kid, watching the seeds float through the air like wishes. I'd never imagined that same plant might hold an answer to something as serious as liver inflammation. So I asked her what she meant, and that's when she shared a piece of her heritage. In her village, women had been using dandelion tea for generations, a seasonal tradition passed down from mothers and grandmothers to cleanse the liver, reduce internal swelling, and help the body recover from long winters and heavy meals. She said her grandmother gave it to the whole family every spring, like a ritual, a natural way of waking the body up after months of stagnation. I listened. Half of me wanted to believe her. The other half was skeptical. It just sounded too simple. A single leaf? Could something so common really be that powerful? I told her I'd try it, and without another word, she walked into her garden and returned moments later with a small bunch of fresh dandelion leaves. She showed me how to rinse them, how to dry them, how to make the infusion the right way. She said to drink 1 cup in the morning and another in the afternoon for 7 days. But there was a catch. You have to stop eating sugar, cut the fat, and move your body a little every day, she added, looking me square in the eyes. Otherwise, it won't work. She didn't say much else. She didn't need to. Her voice had the weight of wisdom that doesn't come from books. It comes from experience. I agreed, more out of respect than conviction, but something in me sparked that day. Maybe it was the care in her gesture. Maybe it was the way she looked at me. Maybe it was the fact that deep down, I still hoped there was a way out of the hole I had dug myself into. That night, I prepared the tea. The smell was earthy, strong, bitter. The flavor wasn't exactly pleasant, but it wasn't unbearable either. I drank it slowly, sip by sip, as if introducing my body to something it had forgotten long ago. That's how this journey began, with a humble leaf and a woman who knew more from life than from science. The next day, I began the routine. The dandelion leaves were drying on a clean towel, just like she told me. There weren't many, but she had said it wasn't about quantity, it was about intention and respect. This plant has strength. Don't underestimate it, she warned. I boiled a full liter of water. When it reached a rolling boil, I turned off the heat and added a generous tablespoon of the dried leaves. I let them steep for 15 minutes with the lid on, to keep in the essential oils. Then I strained the tea and poured it into a glass bottle. 1 cup went down warm and unsweetened on an empty stomach in the morning. The 2nd cup I took later in the day, before dinner. No sugar, no artificial sweeteners. Just the plant and the hot water. The first sips were bitter, that's the truth. But with each one, I felt like I was making a quiet promise to myself. You're doing this for you. You're doing this to heal. I gave myself a rule. No excuses. Didn't matter if I was tired, hungry, busy, or irritated. 2 cups every day, 7 days. No more, no less. And I didn't just rely on the tea. That week, for the first time in my life, I eliminated sugar completely. No white bread, no soda, no candy. I cut out saturated fats, fried foods, and anything that came in a package. I ate simple, steamed vegetables, low glycemic fruits, legumes, brown rice, and every day I walked for 20 minutes, just 20, but I didn't skip a single day. What happened during those 7 days was something I never saw coming. The first 3 days were tough, not physically, but emotionally. My body started reacting. I felt sleepier than usual. I had mild headaches. My breath smelled a bit off, and in the morning, my tongue had a white coating. I panicked at first, but after doing some research, I realized this was normal. My body was purging toxins. My liver, for the first time in years, was starting to release what it had been holding on to. And then, on day 4, something shifted. I woke up feeling lighter. My belly wasn't bloated. That heavy pressure I always felt after eating, it was gone. And something even more surprising happened. My mind cleared up. I felt sharper. My thoughts were more organized. I was calmer, less anxious, more patient. By the 7th day, I remember waking up before my alarm. My body felt alive. Not perfect, but truly alive. The energy I had wasn't from caffeine or sugar. It was natural. My eyes looked clearer. My skin had more color. My digestion was smooth and silent. And the constant fatigue, the kind that had followed me everywhere for years, was gone. 7 days, 1 leaf, hot water, and a real decision to show up for myself. That was the moment I knew I was on the right path. Something inside me had reawakened. My body was functioning again, like it had remembered how to heal. The first thing I noticed was how flat my stomach had become. That swelling I used to carry after every meal, the bloated feeling that had become part of my identity. It was just gone. And I hadn't taken a single pill. I didn't have to switch to looser pants. I didn't find myself rummaging through the closet for clothes that could hide the bloating. For the first time in what felt like years, my abdomen felt light, calm, flat. My digestion had taken a dramatic turn for the better. Before, eating was like going into battle. Every meal brought bloating, gas, and this stubborn heaviness that clung to me like a fog. I used to feel like food just sat there, unmoving, heavy, like it didn't know where to go. But now, things had shifted. My system was finally working with me instead of against me. I began eating less, not because I was forcing myself, but because I felt full sooner. I was finally in tune with my body. Meals left me satisfied, not sleepy. I didn't get that mental fog afterward. My body processed food smoothly, quietly, almost effortlessly. That alone would have been enough to make me feel hopeful. But then, my sleep transformed too. No more tossing and turning. No more waking up groggy, feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My sleep was deep, uninterrupted, and genuinely restorative. I woke up refreshed, like I had actually recharged. And that single change, that ability to rest deeply, started spilling into every other part of my day. When you sleep well, everything changes. Your energy, your mood, even your ability to think clearly. A good night's sleep is like launching your day with a full tank instead of running on fumes. And speaking of energy, that was the biggest shock of all. This wasn't the kind of fake buzz you get from caffeine or sugar. This was a steady, natural, powerful energy that stayed with me from the moment I got out of bed until I lay down at night. I found myself doing more, walking more, organizing things around the house, having actual conversations without silently wishing they'd end so I could go lie down. I didn't have to drag myself through the day anymore. I had fuel, real fuel. And along with that energy came something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Joy. I smiled more. I laughed more. I felt lighter, not just in my body, but in my spirit. That constant sense of frustration, like I was dragging a weight behind me, started to lift. I began to enjoy small things again. Reading, calling an old friend, taking a walk just for the sake of walking. I started to feel like myself again, like a version of me I hadn't seen in years was slowly reawakening. And people noticed. The first person who said something was my sister. She looked at me with surprise and said, "What are you doing differently? Your eyes look brighter. Your skin looks healthier." Then came Mrs. Elena, the very woman who had handed me those leaves. She didn't say much, just smiled and said, "Told you so." Even the local butcher, someone I barely spoke to, commented, "You look lighter. Are you exercising now?" Those little remarks meant more than I can say, because they confirmed something I already felt. My body wasn't just surviving anymore, it was responding, it was thriving. And the most incredible part? I hadn't relied on any medication. I didn't spend thousands of dollars. I didn't starve myself or follow some punishing regimen. It was just one plant, one decision, and real, sustained commitment. What began as an effort to help my liver slowly turned into a transformation that touched every area of my life. I wasn't just healing physically, I was healing emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I felt like I had crossed a threshold, like something inside me had shifted. And after those 7 powerful days of consistency and cleansing, I did something I had been putting off. I went back to the doctor. I was nervous. I didn't want to face more bad news. I didn't want to hear phrases like progressing damage or irreversible condition. But deep down, I also needed to know, was all this just in my head, or had my body actually changed? I made the appointment, got my blood drawn, and waited. A few days later, I found myself sitting in front of my doctor again. He opened the results and studied them in silence. His expression changed. A mix of curiosity, relief, and honest surprise washed over his face. Then he looked up and said, "Your liver enzymes are down. Your transaminase levels were way too high before, but now they're within normal range, and your inflammation markers have significantly improved." I didn't say a word. I just nodded, holding back a wave of emotion. Inside, it felt like my body was whispering to me, "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up." The doctor asked me what I'd been doing differently. I told him everything. I told him about Mrs. Elena, about the dandelion tea, about drinking it twice a day, about eliminating sugar, avoiding fried foods, and refusing to make excuses. He listened carefully, then said something I'll never forget. "This isn't a replacement for medical treatment, and no plant can perform miracles. But what you've done here, your discipline, your real commitment to change, that's what makes the difference. If this plant helped you take that first step, then it was absolutely worth it." And he was right. Dandelion isn't magic. It won't fix everything while you continue eating poorly, sleeping badly, and overwhelming your body with toxins. It's not a shortcut to health, but if you use it with intention, with care, and as part of a real commitment, it can absolutely support the journey. It can help open the door. But the doctor also reminded me of something important. Not every body reacts the same way. What worked for me might do nothing for someone else. Or worse, it could cause problems if they have certain conditions. That's why, before starting any change, even one that feels natural or harmless, it's essential to talk to a professional. And I want to pass that on to you right now if you're watching this. Before trying any new plant, supplement, tea, or routine, speak with someone who understands your body, because your body is one of a kind. Your story is one of a kind. And what works for one person won't always work for another. There's something deeply universal that I learned through all of this. Something that no supplement, no shortcut, no trendy health hack can ever replace. True health isn't something you buy. It's something you build. Day by day. Choice by choice. And in my case, that construction began with something as simple as a leaf, a cup of herbal tea, and a decision. A decision to stop ignoring myself. A decision to take responsibility. As I sit here recording this, months have passed since that first week when I began drinking dandelion tea. And let me tell you, I haven't felt the same since. That heavy, dragging sensation in my body, the fatigue that followed me like a shadow, that unsettling feeling that something deep inside was quietly breaking down, it's all gone. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't some dramatic overnight cure. It was the start of something new. And even though I no longer drink the infusion every day, I still return to it, especially when I feel myself slipping, when I overeat, when my sleep gets disrupted, when I sit too much. That simple tea has become my reset button, gently guiding me back when I wander off the path. But honestly, the most powerful part of this journey wasn't the plant. It was the awareness that bloomed inside me. I learned to pay attention, to listen. I don't wait for my body to scream anymore. Now, I can hear it when it whispers. I can tell when my sleep is shallow that something is off. I know now that bloating isn't just getting older. I understand that when I crave sugar to feel alive, something's out of balance inside. And with that understanding, I started making small changes, not extreme ones, nothing unsustainable, just human habits that I could actually live with. I walk every day now, even if just for 30 minutes. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because moving clears my head, helps my blood flow, lifts my spirit. I breathe deeper. I think better. I feel grounded. I've also learned to steer clear of those hidden fats, the ones that sneak into cold cuts, packaged snacks, ultra-processed foods, and overly refined cheeses. It's not about eliminating every single one forever. It's about not letting them become the foundation of my diet anymore. Improving my sleep was another big challenge. I had to train myself to disconnect, to turn off screens before bedtime, to eat lighter in the evening, to finally understand that healing doesn't just happen during the day. It begins when we truly rest at night. Your body rebuilds itself when you sleep, but only if you give it that chance. And there's one more habit I've held on to. A daily check-in with myself. Just a moment to ask, how are you doing today? Not physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What do I need today? Water? Rest? A moment of silence? Forgiveness? Whatever the answer is, I try to honor it. Because if I don't listen to myself, who else will? And that brings me to you. If you're watching this, if you've made it to the end of my story, I want to leave you with something simple, but important. Don't wait until your body is shouting. Learn to hear it when it's still whispering. That nagging discomfort, that odd fatigue, that quiet tension that comes and goes. Don't brush it off. It's not trying to scare you. It's trying to protect you. Your body wants to keep going. It wants to be strong for you, but it needs your help. I wish I hadn't waited so long to start listening, but I'm grateful I didn't wait too long.